Hello and welcome, my name is Ajaxpost and welcome to Transport Fever 2, a special kind of review video, a look back at the first 50 years of my Bristol 2 Let's Play series. Quite a lot's happened. What I thought we'd do today is just have a quick look back at how the map and how the game has evolved over the 50 years since we started in 1850 right up to the very end of 1899. And first let's just take a look at the whole map as it stood in 1850, based around Bristol and the Severn Estuary. You can see the main towns around, mostly villages I imagine at that time of the century, stretching from Bristol out here to the east, over towards Bath and Chippenham. And that's where it stops there. A couple of villages around Bath, a major town in its own right, as we will see, hopefully see develop. Then down south of Bath out to Trowbridge, to Warminster, smaller towns of Frome, Midsummer Norton, Shepton Mallet, and further across to the coast. Oh no, before we get to the coast, there's Cheddar Valley. Of course, a significant scenic high spot of this part of the world, though not actually served by my transport network yet. Anyway, yeah, and on to the banks of the Severn, Burnham-on-Sea, Highbridge, the southernmost spot there, and of course the lovely seaside resort of Weston-super-Mare. And then we're back towards Bristol to the mouth here of the Avon. Is it the Avon? I'm not entirely sure. It must be it's called Avonmouth. The industrial centre, the industrial heartland really of Bristol and the docks there. And then further up the Severn Estuary to Severn Beach, Pilning, and a few towns north. We don't go as far as Gloucester or Cheltenham, but we have got Stroud up there on that side of the map. And then over the water into Wales. Just a few towns. Wales is fairly sparse compared to the English side, starting at Lydney at the north, and then a few of the more major towns, particularly Chepstow, which we've started to develop. And finally, right down here south, the major, it's a major town now in South Wales, of Newport. They're not Cardiff. We're missing out Cardiff, which is a bit of a shame, but there you are. But what I'd like to do in this video is just have a look at how the map has evolved. So we're just going to focus on the main area I've been developing so far, which is around Bristol and this end of the Severn Estuary. So this is what the map looked like in January 1850. Roughly 4,500 people, thereabouts. So that's January 1850, and that evolved over 50 years into this. As you can see, we've created quite the explosion in businesses, in residences and commercial properties in those 50 years. And the growth across the whole map has reached now around 9,000 people. Quite impressive. Well, I think it's quite impressive at my sort of steady pace of development anyway. If we want to actually look at how the town layouts have changed. It's difficult to tell, unfortunately, because they've muted the colours here in Transport Fever 2 compared to Transport Fever 1. But you should hopefully be able to make out the green, the yellow and the blue industrial, commercial and residential areas. So this is what the land ownership map looks like in 1850. And that's changed quite dramatically, as you can see here, in 1899, or by the end of 1899. We've got some very dense residential and industrial properties in particular around the centre of Bristol there, and also a fairly substantial commercial district there. But quite a few of these places here have grown, and you can see that. And we'll look at one or two interesting aspects regarding the layout and the distribution of the land types, the residential, the commercial, industrial, a little bit later in this review. If we focus more on the Bristol area itself, the sort of distinctly Bristol area as we know it today, this is what the map looked like at the beginning of 1850. A small number of villages, very small towns scattered around the centre of Bristol, as you can see. But that's evolved quite substantially by putting a railway station in, in fact 3, and a whole number of bus routes. This is what Bristol turned into in 50 years. Yeah, I'm quite impressed with that. That is quite a change in the layout of the city, and you can see there in the centre of the map the sort of the big player here in terms of my network, the Bristol Temple Meads. I have got just down there under the 31st of December, there is a Bedminster station, and I've actually created a kind of phony station in Brandon Hill, which doesn't exist to my knowledge, certainly not at the moment. And Clifton Down is not in exactly the right position down there towards the southwest of the city. But that services a whole number of interesting routes out. Again, let's have a look at the distribution change in terms of land types. And there we can see, yeah, it's basically residential along the central road there, and scattering of commercial and pockets of industrial usage. And that's changed. Yeah, there it is. Again, what conclusions you can draw from that, difficult to judge perhaps, but that's how everything has changed, and we've certainly got a lot more high density here. In fact, in most of these little towns, as they've evolved and come together, this is one of the challenges of this particular map. Is that a lot of the towns, certainly in the immediate Bristol area that we're looking at here, were very close together, which creates an enormous amount of traffic because people just like going to other towns. But this is the fascinating thing. I love numbers. If you've been watching any of my other Let's Play series, you'll know that I have a fascination with numbers. And this shows up some interesting changes, mainly obviously focusing on the fact that I have provided routes to some towns and not others. So if we look over in the left-hand panel, the 1st of January 1850, Bath, Newport are the biggest places on the map when we started. And Bristol was in a fairly poor third place, 135 to 116. Since that, in the 50 years since growth, Bath, in fact, we didn't send much to for many years. There was a real problem making money between Bristol and Bath to start with. So that, I think, accounts for some of the difference in the numbers here. So Bristol has grown from 116 to 430. Bath has grown slightly less, from 135 to 331, as you can see there. And the growth columns on the far right there show you that difference, a 200% growth as opposed to 130. Newport, again, that's one of the towns I've in fact not added any routes into Newport at all, but I have started supplying routes to the towns around Newport. So the growth in that in Newport has been significantly less. If we look at other places, actually the villages around the centre of Bristol, like Kingsdown and St Paul's, again I provided them routes, bus routes out through into the main station, and from there obviously people can travel far and wide out from Bristol Temple Meads. And the interesting difference here is that I'm using the sandbox mode in the game, and for a number of the towns around Bristol I've actually removed the industrial and commercial requirements, and that does limit their growth, and we can see this in a number of ways. Kingsdown, for example, and St Paul's, which I've highlighted here in the white and the sort of mid blue, have both grown by 190%. From 66 and 74 up to 164, 165. So they've grown simply by providing routes for passengers. However, other towns to which I've actually supplied commercial or industrial goods, like at the top there, the purple boxes, Filton and Shirehampton, have grown by over 200%. And that surely is to do with the fact that I'm actually supplying them with goods as well, with cargo, and not just passenger transport routes. Shirehampton, you can unfortunately, when I took the screenshot of these stats pages, I chopped it off at Shirehampton. You can just about make out in the very bottom of the left hand screen there, Shirehampton, I think, is a population of 53, has gone up to 187 through provision of passenger transport and that cargo, the construction materials, 220% increase. Filton I'm going to have another look, but I didn't see it there when I first put this page together. No, Filton doesn't appear on the left-hand map at all. But because that's close to a number of very good passenger connections, and also I'm supplying it with, in this case, fuel, it's grown by 230% from 53 or less than 53 to 189. So that obviously really demonstrates the power of providing not just passenger connections, but also the commercial and industrial cargo that they require. But I mean, look at that, compare that to the Kingsdown and St Paul's growth. They've both grown very substantially, but there is that 20, 30, 40% difference in growth because I'm not supplying them with any cargo at all. And unfortunately in St Paul's that's never going to happen because I've taken out those requirements altogether, so they're not going to go above, I would have thought, 200%. Kingsdown does still have cargo demands, but I'm not supplying it yet, so that particular location I'm sure will grow very substantially once I start bringing goods into that area of the map. So that's it. Yeah, but that I find fascinating. But I love this sort of stuff. You'll see me mention these sort of numbers and so on as I've gone through the series. And the final graph here is the overall growth in population, jobs and shopping facilities over the 50 years from 1850 to the end of 1899. As you can see, it's difficult to tell without actually adding up all the numbers for all the individual towns, and there's over 50 of them on this map. So yeah, I wasn't going to do that. I'm not. Yeah, I am that lazy. Yeah. Would you do it? Yeah. Well, tell me in the comments if you would. Yeah. So roughly 4,500 in 1852. What I estimate is halfway between 8,000 and 10,000. So I'm going to call that 9,000, and that's it. So what will the next 50 years hold? How much further growth will we get? Will it be another 100% increase on that? Will we go to 18,000? Well, that will be interesting. I wonder if the map will cope with that. But yeah, there's still lots of places we haven't connected yet, so the potential for growth is significant on this map. So I'm just going to leave you with a little flyover around the map in 1899, and you can see how much space we still have to develop on this map. Once again, considerable thanks to Specialist Zero for creating this Bristol map in the first place. As I said in the first video in the series, the Creating the Map episode, I did make some changes to it. I took a couple of towns out and added all the industries and so on in, but the actual design of the map, the layout of the towns and so on, are all down to Specialist Zero, and I am entirely, utterly and completely grateful to him for creating this map for me to play on. So that's it. We will start soon. Very soon indeed, almost immediately I finish wrapping this video up. We will start on the next century of Transport Fever 2, Bristol 2, in the 1900s, and see what the next 50 years hold for us. Well, thank you for watching this. If you've enjoyed this little review of where we've been so far in this series, be great to hear from you. A little bit of a like would be lovely. A thumbs up, you know how that works. Even better if you've got any thoughts, comments, suggestions, hints, tips, even criticisms of what I'm doing with Transport Fever 2 here in Bristol, then please do drop a note into the comments box below. It's always great to hear from you. And of course, if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, why not do that now? And that way you keep on top of all the videos I'm creating, both for Transport Fever 2 and the other series that I'm uploading. But from me, Ajaxpost, here in Transport Fever 2, until the next time, bye bye for now.